Winning Foreign is, I think ShadowDark is probably one of the most popular games of 2024, and I'm finally taking my review of it. So this is the good, the bad, and the arty. So this is where I'll take a book from my shelf or a PDF that I own, and I'll look at what's good in the book, what's bad in the book, all the while going through all the art. And finally, at the end, we'll give the conclusion from a score from 1 to 10. So yeah, as I said, I'm now finally getting around to reviewing ShadowDark. So let's just not mess around. Let's just get straight into the review and the book. And we're going to start off, as ever, looking at the front cover, which is, well, as you can say, this is probably meant to be some sort of beholder. You're going to see, because this is an old school rules-like game. It still uses D20. I would say it's very much influenced off 5th edition as we go through it. So you'll see this does look very sort of beholdery, but slightly alternative because it's got two eyes. But throughout the book, we're going to see this. I'm going to say off the top of my head, that's not off the top of my head. I'm convinced there is no color in the book. I don't remember seeing any color. So it's all black and white, giving that nice old school feel to it. Starting off with the inside cover, I was talking to a friend yesterday about this, and I think all books should do this, where they utilize the inside cover for really useful tables or little bits of rules in here. So we've got a weapons table, armor, difficulty class. So when we get into the rules, you'll see it's just a standard D20 game, and add in your ability score to it, and then you might have a couple of modifiers. So it gives you the morale rules, dying, distance. So you've got three distances in this: close, near, and far, and some climbing rules, some falling rules, etc. And how to sort of cast spells and spell focus is in the inside cover. And then you get into the book itself. So ShadowDark, it's written, design, layout by Kelsey Dion of the Arcane Library. So it was published in 2024. All of the artists are listed here, and the great thing about the PDF copy, sorry, it's 2023, it was actually copyrighted, but I think it was released 2024, so it was kickstarted 23. Very successfully kickstarted, let's say. And all the artists here, you can actually just click through and it will just take you to the art page, which is fantastic. Content. So this book is 332 pages, so it is big. But the good thing is you're not going to do anything else. This is your player's guide, your Dungeon Masters or Games Masters guide, and your monster manual all in one place. It's a little bit, so you might argue it's a little bit expensive because I think it comes in around about $60, but I think $60 for one book and the only book you need is nice and concise. I'm getting into goods and bads, so I'll leave that till the end. Okay, so let's just talk about the stats and facts of the book. Okay, so it's a 332 page book. Take you through the introduction, then you're straight into making characters, the magic system itself, how to play the game. You've then got a games master section, which takes you all the way through the role, balances, loads and loads of random tables to make random encounters. The monster manual, which is here, which I think what's that come in? There's 80 pages of monsters, and there's lots of monsters per page when we get to it. And then the final things like treasure, magic items, etc., which will then conclude out the book. Okay, so let's get into the introduction and just start. The first piece of art, which just gives you a little bit of a background. And after we've got a cave or some sort of potential temple, something that's man-made, you know you're going on an adventure in here. Basic introduction, sort of, it just kind of explains what role playing here is on the left hand side, and like a basic sort of encounter, and then tells you what ShadowDark is. A fantasy game where you and your companions delve into buried ruins, lost cities, spider infested forests, and even some fearsome dragon lairs in search of gold and glory. And that just perfectly summarizes the game. This isn't a game where you are technically killing monsters, because you gain experience for collecting gold and items, not for killing things. Again, I'm So it's a slightly different format for most games that you're going to play because there are other games out there that it kind of drives you to kill things as opposed to collect and hoard, which very much has that old school feel to it because the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons, I think second as well, was very much linked to gold became experience. So the basics of the game. So you've got a character, I am the games master. On a player's turn, you're going to get an action, and it sort of just says, well, an example of an action is you're going to shoot something. Movement, you can move up to near, which will come onto the ranges. So with the three ranges as discussed, very, very simple this. And you can move roughly 30 feet. And a round is what your players will do. Actually, as a games master, you're going to be involved in the round as well because you're going to get to move or interact with the player characters. From a dice point of view, nicely explains D4 all the way up to D20. Statistics, these will all look familiar if you played 5th edition. Strength, Dex, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. And then we've got the difficulty text. So it's just a D20 added then to the statistic. You might have something else to beat over a number. Be it so 9 all the way through to sort of 15, 20, depending on how difficult the task will be. The higher the number, the more difficult it will be for the players to achieve. And hit points, this game is like 5th edition. You've got a number of hit points, which determines how much damage a player can take before they go unconscious or die. So straight into the player characters. So we've got 4 characters here, which will make sense once we get into full-on character creation. Character creation, very streamlined. It'll probably take a minute to 5 minutes to create a character depending on the level you're going with. Nice simple steps. You have the name, the ancestry, which is your culture or ancestral heritage, your class, which is your job, the level, either 0 or 1st. You can create higher level characters, but this is just to give you starting, the XP you start with, the alignment and deity, whether you are lawful, chaotic, or neutral, any sort of titles your character's got, any sort of background, your statistics, which then roll, which will give you a hit point, your AC, which is your difficulty to be hit, how many attacks that you get, or your attacks, any special talents you get. If you're a spellcaster, you're going to get to cast spells, and then your starting equipment, and you're done. That's it. It's that. I know it sounds quick, but you'll see once we get into it just how quick it's going to be. Basic game will give you 2 different types of characters, whether you have 0 level or a 1st level character. Most campaigns, I'd imagine, you're going to start at 1st level, but this will allow you to start at 0 level, and you've just got less steps. So you just do your stats all the way through to starting gear, but what you're not doing is picking a class. You're starting occupation if you are a 0 level character. We'll come on to that, how that works. It says here, go to page 39. And actually, that's got another hyperlink. So this will just click that and it will jump straight through it if you want to go to your 0 level ability, 0 level characters. 6 stats. Nice, very basic roll. Roll 3d6, do them in order, write them down. You have got this option here where if none of your stats are 14 or higher, you can just re-roll another set. And then they just correspond depending on the number you get. So if you rolled 3d6 and they total up to a 12, you'd have a +1 modifier. So that +1 is added to your d20, and then you'll get whatever the total is. But you might have some sort of traits or magic weapons that might add to it. Ancestry. This game has got 6 ancestries. Dwarf. And each ancestry as well will have a language, their own language, plus a bonus language normally, unless I think it's the halfling and the humans get to pick an extra one. The halflings don't. And then you'll have some sort of one special ability or talent technically for a goblins for your ancestry. So for example, the goblin here, so you're never going to be surprised. As a halfling, once per day, you can become invisible for 3 rounds. Then we've got 4 different classes in the game: fighter, priest, thief, and wizard. Fighters, you imagine, stand at the front or with a sword or archery, depending on what you specialize. Priest tend to be the healing sort of class. Thief, as it sounds, they're very good at sneaking and hiding, disguise, etc. And then the wizard cast is your sort of fireball, lightning bolt, your caster class in here. Each class it's over 2 pages, so it's very, very simple. And one of those pages is actually some artwork. So it's actually down to 1 page, and it will just give you a brief description of the class itself, any weapons you've got, any armor, how many hit point you roll per level, and then a special ability. Well, maybe let's say for the fighter here, we've got 3 special abilities. And every time you gain the level, so from first all the way up to 10th, well, depends on how far you go with this, you will just roll on the talent table. And if you roll the same one twice, you will get to add it again, assuming you can. There are some talents in the game that it doesn't allow you to take multiple times, but it's as simple as that as you level up. If you want to go with the casting classes, so the priest or the wizard, you will also have this additional table here, which will just show you how many spells you get by level. Level is the level of the character, and then you've got spell tier, which is if you think from a 5th edition point of view, the tier is what they call the level of the spell. Okay, which I like the separation here. So, for example, if you're a 7th level priest, you'd have 3 first levels, first 3 tier spells, I should say, 3 second tier spells, 2 third tier spells, and 1 fourth tier spell. These are spells known, not spells casted. We'll get into casted, or the ability to cast, once we get to the spell rules. Okay, and that's the same for the wizard as well. Backgrounds, you will then just roll a random background, which will just give you a little bit of, it doesn't really give you a lot from a mechanical point of view, but just gives you an idea. You can allow players to pick it, but just randomly roll. You've then got your 3 different alignments, so chaotic, lawful, and neutral. So you don't really believe in law and order, believe in law and order. You're a mix of the two. That's it. So there is no good or evil in this. So yeah, believe in law and order, or you don't. That's it. You do have gods. Obviously, priests are definitely going to have a deity they follow, but the rest is really up to you. There's not a plethora of gods in this world. Keeps it nice and simple, and you've got a few, be them lawful, neutral, or chaotic gods. Titles. Randomly roll it, your title if you want your character to have a title. There's lots of random rolls in this game. And then we go on to your languages. Say that is determined by initially your race or ancestry, we should say, in this game. Then we've got a few rare languages, and it just gives you some starting equipment here. Again, random roll, just roll a d12, and there you are pretty much away. You've got a little bit of additional money you can go and spend on a few items, and then you are pretty much ready to go. Randomly roll your character name if you want to, and then as you go up and gain experience is done. We'll see that once we actually get to how you gain experience. But as you gain experience, you will go up levels. And as you go up levels, so you don't get a talent every level. So it's every odd level. So once you get to level 10, you will have 5. You will roll on your talent table for your class. So here, 5 times. Okay. I think I may have said every level, but follow the rule book. Don't follow me all the time. Random characters. If you want to create a completely random character, you can. And this will just allow you to do this. So this is really good for NPCs from the Dungeon Master point of view. It's very, very quick just to create a few random characters. Or even if you want to go completely random as a player, you can do. You can just follow this through and go random. And that's it. That is the end of character creation for first and 0 level characters. And even say second, third level characters, you'll just use that same rule. So let's then straight into the magic rules. Spellcasting is dealt differently in this game. So wizards are, say we've got 2 different spellcasters, wizards and priests. So wizard, the magic is physical, complicated and volatile. Even the most learned mages tread carefully when reaching beyond the veiled grasp of arcane energies. The priest, the magical, is miraculous, sacred and instinctive. Priests who offend their gods might lose the ability to spellcast until they can undertake penance. Casting the spells, you just keep casting spells all day, okay? Assuming you pass your spell rolls. There's no spell slots. There is a difficulty. There's no spell points to spend. So if you've got a fireball, you can cast a fireball every single round, doing whatever damage, carnage that you want. You might go, that's a bit dangerous, isn't it? It is, but spellcasting comes with its own inherent dangers. Firstly, you need to pass the spell roll. So the difficulty for the spell roll is if you're a wizard, you roll a d20 plus your intelligence modifier, a priest, a d20 plus your wisdom modifier. And the difficulty is a 10 plus the tier level of the spell. Okay, so not the level of the spell, remember tier. So if the spell is a third tier spell, you've got to roll a 13 or more. It's that simple. Keep rolling 13s or more, you will keep casting your spell. Fail that roll, you'll not cast in that spell again until you take a rest. So that's a long rest. That's your full sort of overnight rest. So it's nice and simple until you fail the spell. And then you kind of got to move on to the next spell. And so you will have, depending on your level, 2, maybe 3 different spells of each level, of each tier. So it's not, you don't lose your ability to cast all spells, it's just that one spell. You've also then got criticals on the spell roll. So if you roll a 20, you can effectively double something within the spell. So if it affects one person, you can affect 2 people. You can double the range, double the damage. It's up to you as to what you double. Critical fail is bad. Okay, so that's where you roll a 1. As a wizard, you will roll on the wizard mishap table, and depending on the tier of the spell, will make it worse potentially for your wizard and what you get. If you fail, if you critically fail on the priest, you cannot cast that spell again until you basically have a realistic penance for your god. And the section here on penance is, as a general, you've got to donate a value of money, which will affect your experience, which will affect you going up levels faster, until you've done something that, say, appeases your god. And what it does say here is you cannot gift that money to a party member, because I'm sure people will have tried that in playtesting. And if you give it to a party member, your god will look at you and go, that's it, you're done. You will not cast that spell ever again. Okay, so you're going to need to maybe come out of the tunnel, come out of the dungeon, go to a village, go and find something. Especially when I was playing the other day, when the priest, the very first roll he made was to cure light wounds, and then they lost the ability to cure light wounds. That was it, done for the day. Well, not for the day. That was it was just for the day. But obviously it wasn't a 1, so it wasn't. So it was going to come back the next day. But yeah, it was quite amusing where the wizard was just, constantly casting fireballs, etc. So yeah, it does have that wonderful, let's just say, randomness to it, which is the old school feel of this. So the mishap table, say the higher the tier of the spell will determine whether it's worse. So for example, if you're casting a 5th tier spell here and you roll a 1 on the cast roll and then a 2 here, you're going to get this pyroclastic extrusion where you'll deal 3d8 damage to yourself and all creatures within near range. There are things like scrolls and wands, so you can actually cast from additional scrolls and wands that you find, because your wizard, your players will only know a number of spells based on the tiers for the level they are. But you can, if you find wands and spells, you will be able to cast additional spells off those. Spell attributes. The spells are broken down into tiers. So here, this is the priest spell list, and then we've got the wizard spell list. As you can see, wizards cast an awful lot. Well, they potentially know an awful lot more spells, and each spell is broken down into the tier ranking it is. The range, be that close, near, or far. The duration, how long the spell lasts. So if it's an ongoing spell, you will just keep casting that. You cast that spell once, and then at the start of every round you will recast it to just keep it going. And then you might have some sort of focus for the spell here, and overlapping spells, ongoing effects of the same spell on the same target do not combine. Okay, so I think it's the most powerful effect takes precedence. Yeah. Okay, so if you've got 2 people throwing in, or 1 person trying to cast more than one spell, the only the most powerful effect will take place here. As you'd, well, not as you'd imagine, the priest is very much reliant on buffing, controlling, bit of area control here, healing, bringing people back from the dead, regrowing body parts, etc. The wizard is your sort of burning hands, charming person, invisibility, knock, levitate, the ability to fly, fireball. It's your damage dealer. It's the polymorph. It's both are essential actually in this. And what I like is the fact that they do differentiate quite significantly across the different spells they can cast. So we'll just pick. So here you're going to see a plethora of spells all the way through, and we're just going to pick. Here we go. I don't know. Let's ignore wish. I'm just going to pick a lower spell here. So turn undead. So it's tier 1 priest. So a first level priest will be able to cast this. The duration is instant. You make your cast, you pass it, happens instantly. Near, which is that's sort of right next to. So it's kind of, if you think the old, it's almost a touch attack. And then it just concisely tells you, you rebuke undead creatures, forcing them to flee. You must present a holy symbol to cast this spell. Undead creatures within near to you must make a char, which is charisma check, versus your spell casting check. So whatever you roll, they're going against them. If the creature fails by 10 points plus, and this is equal to or less than your level, it was destroyed. Otherwise, on a fail, it flees from you for 5 rounds. And that's it. That is spells. Then we're straight into gameplay as well. And then we are straight into gameplay. Just a little example here, just gives you what's going on. So, I checked for traps twice. You said no traps. The demon door is just for decor. Just a little bit of themed here. And then it will take you in through basic adventuring and a little bit of a sort of kind of story of, do you see the supernova in the alcove, and how to sort of set that, the sort of theme if you've never been a games master before. The game does have advantage and disadvantage. So the same as 5th edition, if you are in a favourable position or someone is helping the players and the games master, you decide that they have advantage, you get them to roll 2d20, they pick the higher. Same with disadvantage, if they've got some adverse, sand in their eye, something like that, they may roll 2d20 and take the lower. Advantage and disadvantage cancel out on 1 for 1. Natural 20s automatically succeed. Natural 1s automatically fail. If you need to do a coin toss, it says here, just roll a d6. 1 to 3, the worst outcome. 4 to 6 is the better results. Luck tokens you can give to your players for doing random heroism or playing coolness. Each player can have a maximum of 1 luck token, and they can use it at any stage to make a reroll, and then they have to use that reroll. Statistics. This just explains, so there's no skills in this game. You are using your statistics like an old school game to do anything involved. So if your player basically says he wants to smash a door, you have to, as the games master, decide which statistic is they're rolling against. It gives you plenty of examples in here. So smashing the door would be under strength. Spotting a well hidden enemy is wisdom. You as a games master, for your first few games, getting used to this, I would print off this page here because it's really going to help you. When do you make rolls? When you make a roll is when there's a chance for a player to fail a roll. Okay. What I really like though is this bit on social roles, and I'm thinking of doing a video on this at some stage because I love the way that they handle social roles. Because with most roles, if like you're fighting and things like that, you just make the roll, you describe what you're doing. With social roles, a lot of games masters ask players to say exactly what they're saying, and then you have to roll as well. So that can be quite uncomfortable for certain players. This is if it does a good narrative speech, you just automatically let them succeed. Where if the player's not comfortable, just let them roll it. Difficulties for rolls. 9 DC is easy, extreme is 18. So you said you're taking the statistic, your plus or minus as it may be, add it, roll d20, add in any talents that you've got for your class to overcome, to equal or exceed the number. If it's contested, you both roll, and then so you're trying to beat each other's rolls. It does say here, if you highest wins, and if it is a tie, you actually re-roll, so it doesn't automatically go in the favor of the defender or attacker. I quite like that, because sometimes if there's a bias towards one through sort of metagaming, you'll know statistically, if it always favors the defender, it's not quite as bad if you're going to just sit back in a combat. Real-time passes in the game in real time, which sounds obvious, but we'll come on to that in probably a really, well, it's, if you're aware of the game, it's a really good mechanic that we've got coming on. Turn times, every player will take their turn, obviously, and as time passes, you're going to encourage the characters to sort of talk to them through this wonderful initiative thing that's over here. So at the start of the game, everyone rolls initiative. The games master rolls initiative based on the dexterity of the highest creature, and all the players roll it. That will then set the initiative for the session effectively, and then each player from there, so whoever goes highest will go first. And so you have rounds in combat, you have rounds out of combat through exploration, etc. But what it does nicely is it actually encourages you as the games master should to go round the table asking everyone what they plan to do on their turn, which I think is a really good thing, because some players are quite shy, and then other players like to talk over the players and sort of take the limelight. So you can be asking them what they do, and it's not sort of time. So this time passes thing. So I've gone to the initiative first. Let's say you're exploring a cavern. It's not round by round every 6 seconds or 10 seconds moving. It can be, you're in a room. What are you looking at? Where are you going, etc. And then just ask everyone individually, because there are certain games that just go, well, we're going to go into the room. Let's just search the room. And then everybody rolls, and whoever then gets the highest happens to spot the secret door that was in the corner that no one else was looking in. Gets rid of all that. Get the players to tell you exactly what they're doing. Okay, so this is the big, wonderful mechanic that I really enjoy on ShadowDark. ShadowDark is a place where darkness, danger, and myths reign supreme. It could be crumbling ruins, ancient mountain strongholds, or mysterious towers. Okay, so the big thing is with ShadowDark is everything is either light or dark, on or off. You either have a torch or you don't, because there is no dark vision. There is no race, species, characters that have dark vision. So you need to illuminate, and if you don't illuminate, everything is considered deadly. We'll get to deadly and what that means in a little bit. Okay, it's coming up. But remember, no torch, no light, no lantern. Everything now becomes deadly and dangerous, because you're going underground or into a cave and it's dark. And if it's dark, you don't know really what's in front of you. So let's just get into movement and distances. 3 distances, as said, from the inside cover of the book. Close, which is within 5 feet, so pretty much everything you can touch. Near, between 5 feet to 30 feet. And then far, everything else. Okay, so it's simple. When you get into range for combat and spells, it just comes into those. So near is you basically touch, your old sort of touch spells. Close is your touch spells. Near, up to 30 feet. And so from 5 feet out and 30 feet, and far. And obviously you can have things that, do multiple of those distances. It's got, again, like the inside cover, your rules here for climbing, falling, moving through. And regroup allows you to sort of regroup your players back together. There are some conditions, for example, blindness and things where players can't see. And it does tend to affect, especially once you get into the monster section, it tends to explain what that may be. And, if you're blind, for example, you're going to be at a disadvantage for stuff. Actions on your turn. It just sort of gives some examples here. So sneaking. So you're going to get to move on your turn and then do an action. So prying, sneaking, tapping a suspicious wall, etc., which we'll go through. Resting. I like the way it deals with the resting in this game, because if you're going to need to rest, and you need to consume rations for 8 hours of sleep, and that is for everyone. If it's interrupted, you might not get everything back. And so if someone attacks you, if someone decides to wake up to go and do something else, so only if you succeed will you actually gain the benefits of the rest that you're going to take. And if you are interrupted, you will make a constitution check to see if it affects you. And if it does affect you, you don't get the benefit of the rest. So the whole night is wasted. So from danger point of view, we've got unsafe, risky, and deadly. Depending on whether it's unsafe, risky, or deadly, again, this will come down to light or the areas you're in. If you're trying to rest in a dungeon where there are, outside a room, you're going to say that that's deadly. There's a chance the players will get interrupted. You're going to try and want to rest really in a safe environment, so you then don't have to make a check every 3 hours, even for unsafe. Campfires, if you want to have a campfire, that's obviously going to offer illumination as well. And you will need to combine a number of torches to make a campfire, which is 3. And then someone's going to have to tend that campfire throughout the night. Sneak in and hiding rules, which so you can hide in the dark considerably easier, as you'd imagine, but you're going to be making things like dex rolls to sort of hide away from people, and you're going to make wisdom rolls, opposed rolls to find them through and detect them. If you are surprised because you haven't spotted them, that means that you're just going to get attacked with advantage against whoever's attacking you. We're then into combat, and this is great because look at that, 2 pages. That's it. Combat is just 2 pages in this. So first thing you do, determine surprise. If people are aware of everyone, there's no surprise. If you're unaware, then they will get advantage. You then will roll initiative for the combat, which will break the standard initiative rules. And after the end of the combat, you'll go back to the initiative rules. And then everyone will take a combat turn in action, in which case they can do melee attack, range attack, cast a spell, some sort of improvised things, or maybe multitask. So stand up, speak, activate a magic item, take in a potion. If the attack hits, which is going to be, again, d20 plus your attack or strength modifier or dex modifier or casting, then you will just, if it beats the AC, so the armor class, you will just take the relevant amount of damage, and that comes off the hit points. If you roll a critical, you double the dice for the damage. If you roll for the spell, as I said, you double something. Terrain can have an effect to make it harder to hit. And death, morale, great rule here, before I accidentally miss this out. So enemies that are reduced to half the numbers of their hit points will flee if they fail a wisdom saving check. So they need to roll a wisdom of 15 or more, or they're going to run away, which is great because that means that your players don't fight to the death all the time, but more importantly, enemies may come back at a later date. Death, nice and simple. Get to 0 hit points, you fall unconscious, and you are considered dying. You will then get a death counter, so you roll a d4, so no skills, death saves, anything like that. You roll a d4, and you add your con modifier as a minimum 1 to it. And people have got that amount of rounds to bring you back, so to basically stabilize you, or to heal you through magic, or your character's no longer here. And then you're going to just have roll up another character. As we saw earlier, it's not going to be that long to do. But stabilizing is quite difficult because you need to make an intelligence DC 15 check. But that's it. That's your combat. It's that simple. Overland travel. This uses sort of old school sort of hex rules. So you can just create a hex map, and the game will allow you to randomly roll the hex for discovering. Obviously, if you bought a adventure or you're homebrewing one, you can use your own hex map, and this just details how far you can travel, how much food you need, and sort of the light rules, and how often you'd roll for random encounters, be it safe, risky, or deadly. Downtime. So downtime is in between adventures, and you can do carousing or learning. Carousing are specific rules where you get to spend some of your gold to try and boost your XP to make it easier to level. And learning is where you would spend time learning a skill type thing or type of talent that you would discuss with the games master, you'll then roll an intelligence check over after a period of time, and you will either gain that or you don't. And each time in downtime, you can try your carousing again or learning. If you failed your previous learning, the difficulty gets reduced by 1. So eventually you will actually pass that, because there's only so many times you can be taught something until you actually understand it. So the carousing rules: when you return from ShadowDark, you can carouse to celebrate your heroic exploits. All you're going to do is roll a d10, d8, and then add the amount of gold that you've spent on this table. So if you spent 900 gold, you get a d8 plus 4. And then you look at the carousing table, and let's say you rolled an 11. You perform a humiliating prank on a despised and corrupt merchant. You're going to gain 5 XP and an ally with the city watch. Simple as that. And that's just going to help you level up. And if you were paying attention, or if I'd maybe draw into your attention each. So to go from first to second level, you can need 10 XP. So that's going to get you halfway up to second level. Wizards and Thieves is just an in-game play that you can play. So it's like a gambling game that you're going to play in a pub. I'll leave you to discover that for yourselves. We've then got several pages of examples of play. So if you're unsure on how to play your new games player, new games master, you might want to print this off, give this to your players as well. Then we are into the games master section. Got our players here just sat in a pub, planning out where they're going to go next. So as the game master, the only thing you need to remember, there is only one rule, and you make the rules. So this game is a rules light game, but so there's going to be times where I think you're unsure or your players may be unsure. What you need to do is you just, as a player, as games master, decide there and then what it's going to be for that session. And at the end of the session, if it hasn't worked, talk to your players, and maybe you want to adapt it. But this is where you sort of have a pact with your players based on respect, etc. If enemies treat people badly, that's an in-game thing, not, people shouldn't be taking it personally. At Dark, we've got this core ethos around time, darkness, gear, which is precious and limited, action economy, you're just going to get 1 action per turn, information, so you can dispense it freely, distances are just down to 3, casting levels from a danger point of view are risk, magic items are volatile, rewarding investments, this is going to be honor that has to be earned, and you're going to gain items and reputations and also allies as you go on, and stat checks are just how you sort of check everything in here. Okay, so running the game, whether you're going to have sort of one shot or small adventures, it gives you hints and tips, and then if you're going to have an ongoing campaign, and this section will take you through whether you want to homebrew fully, or you can randomly roll an awful lot of this. A little bit of a section how to deal with character death here, which is quite important. I think you need to be aware as the games master, and also for the players, if you're going to do a session 0, let them be aware that character death is going to happen. I think it's just going to happen. I wouldn't even say that, it may happen. People will lose characters in this game. You're not superheroes. You're not indestructible. Bad things happen to good people, unfortunately. You will need to decide the world that you are going in. So this isn't really a game world. So you will need something else potentially to just add to the environment of the world. Let there be light, let there be darkness, sorry. Attack the light. So from a light point of view, so players will need a light source, and the light source will last for an hour, and you put that hour on you can just do it on a phone, and as it disappears and ends, you will then now have light, so you'll go back into the darkness. But because the the monsters are aware of that, they might actually attack the light sources, or there are a chance when you'll be in fighting or casting spells or environmental issues that you might have light mishaps as well, which can just make it a little bit more sinister. So because items and inventory is tracked, they are going to need to keep an eye on and carry enough light sources, because if they run out in the middle of a dungeon, they're probably never getting out because it's dark. If the game doesn't seem harsh enough, there are additional rules here. So you can make light sources last 30 minutes, or you've got a chaos mode or a deadly mode. So that there's different things that you can actually add in here for different game modes. And then we are getting into some of the random stuff, some random encounters. I'm not a massive fan of random encounters. I tend to roll my random encounters beforehand so I know what's coming up. But if you want to do it completely random, this will just give you how often you roll them, starting distances, what you're doing, reaction checks. The reaction checks for any creatures, so not everything is hostile in this game when you meet them, depending on the charisma of the players, will determine whether they are anywhere from hostile to friendly. And some random creatures, so you've got a 50% chance. So you roll a d6, 1 to 3, no, 4 to 6, yes, that they have got a random chance for having treasure with them. Okay, so we've then got variety of traps and hazards. Hazards tend to slow players down or have ongoing effects. Traps, as it sounds, are things that going to stand on pressure pads or open doors, etc. Disabling is quite a nice little rule. So thieves and characters who are trained in tinkering can describe how they're going to disable or circumvent the trap. If the player has enough time and uses a reasonable method, the characters succeed. If there's a time pressure, you're just going to make them roll. So allow the players to come up with interesting ideas on how they're going to do it. And let's say if they've got plenty of time and you're not constrained, because time is kind of abjected in this, in the way that you've got the constant timer going on with the torch. So if they take too long, they're burning through torches. So that and potential for random monsters. So allow them, if they going to be inventive on how they're going to get through the traps. Gauntlet. So if you're going to have a 0 level characters, which I encourage you to do, every player will roll 4 0 level characters. They've got no sort of class there. And then you have this mini adventure, and whoever survives it gets to go to level 1. So you can have a little bit more bonding with the players. Well, the players are going to have a little bit more bonding with their character. So if you've got time, do it that way. If not, you can just randomly roll the background. Warden experience. So treasure falls into 4 different categories. You can give out poor, normal 1 XP, fabulous 3 XP, legendary 10 XP. Don't give out legendary items very often, or they're going to soon rise the levels. And just gives you ideas of gold and things to give out. Adventure hooks, so something may happen. You can just roll a d100 here and just go, oh, a passing stranger presses an ancient coin into your hand. So it's just a adventure hook to get something going. If you want random rumors for your players, you can just roll some random tables here. And then we are getting into adventure generators. So they may meet a random group of people. We can then use this section here to randomly roll an adventure just from scratch using a d20. So you can have stop the cult in Mirkwood. So that would just, a reason to go off there for adventure hooks. Randomly rolling NPCs is nice and quick for you as a dungeon master. If you need to roll, this has got you covered. So it'll give you the ancestry, age, alignment, any wealth, any special qualities they've got. So like they're sweaty, they make puns, etc. Or then they've got some sort of secret here. Their occupation, all the way through to then creating a random group of adventurers that they may meet, including the party name and sort of signature tactics, load of player names, because names are always useful. It's really, I've got the sort of players that I say this all the time. My players like to ask the names of the NPCs they meet, and then they'll go back to go and see them again at some stage. So I have to write everything down nowadays. ShadowDark maps. If you can randomly create maps from scratch, and encounters here, and then traveling overland hex maps. So whether it's you're going to go into swamp, grassland, so also cover map settlements on the map, and then taverns as well. Taverns are always a quite difficult thing as a games master, because you've got to think of the name of the tavern, the sort of food they provide, the drinks they provide, and then if they've got anything special about the tavern, get shops. Not every village or town has every shop that you want or shop name. So this, again, random tables in here, and then we have got pages upon pages of random encounters from things like the Arctic all the way through to forest, grasslands, low markets, mountains, oceans, rivers, ruins, slums, swamps, taverns, temple districts, university districts. So as you can see, there's an awful lot of random stuff in there. Just as a games master, I wouldn't randomly roll it probably as like that. I think you might want to just randomly roll it beforehand in the sessions, and to give you a little bit of help and guidance of where you're going to count. But you can just, if you want to do this is great for one shots as well. If you want just a random evening with your players to learn it, you can just do that. The players will probably die though, just because. Say monsters. Monsters are nice and simple. So we've got only a few attributes. We've got armor class, hit points, how many attacks they have, how far they move, same statistics as the players, alignment, any spell casting that they cast, and they're dark adapted. So non-humanoid monsters are dark adapted. Their power allows them to ignore the penalties of total darkness. So they're not going to have to worry about the disadvantage roll. If you want to randomly generate a monster yourself, you can. The rules are then, if you want to just make it a little bit weird and give it some sort of mutation or bonus or disadvantage, you've got this little table here. And this will just break through how to make monsters, design them, and how many monsters you should have depending on the party level. We have then got, I think it's about 80 pages of monsters. And as you can see, each monster is the multiple pages. There are multiple monsters on the pages. There's not a lot of art in here, but it does give you a basic sort of idea of the monsters. And let's just pick on the centaur here. Herd dwelling beings with the upper body of a human and lower body of a horse. So its AC is 12. It's got 14 hit points. It's got 2 attacks. Tells you what it attacks and what it goes with. Its movement is double near, so it's going to do 2 attacks. And then it's got the statistics here. Okay, its alignment is neutral and level 3. So that you'd expect a level 3 party to sort of be able to combat and come with that. Because if we go back to here, so a level 3 monster, so you're looking at a average party level of 4 to 6. So me personally, I think I would have just kept these in line, but you're going to get everything from devils, dinosaurs, dragons. So there are just pages and pages of monsters and some sort of special monsters here. Level 19, don't keep the players away from that for quite a while, but it's quite nice. You've got what I would class as sort of N-level bosses with full page things, and even your sort of classic Tarrasque with your level 30 here. And that's it. That is it. There's so many monsters in this to throw at the players. And then we are into treasure, and the treasure, unguarded treasure, dealing with root magic items. Depending on the level of the party, so 0 to 3, you've got random treasure tables of 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and then 10 plus. Mundane items, if they find mundane items, you can have luxury items as well, and then it puts a little twist on it. You can roll a d4, and so they're not going to be the same every single time. Boons, so these are special things that are kind of not worth XP, but advantages to your players. So it's going to give you like an oath where a duke will help you, or some secrets that are going to help you encounter something or complete an adventure. Blessings are things that you can take or drink that will make your players more powerful for a small period of time. So once per day, you may deal double damage if you get this Rite of Rage. If you want to randomly find magic items, these tables will have you covered. If you want to generate the name from scratch, because creating magic items can be difficult on the fly, you've got like 3d20 here. We'll just create sort of Madeira's Staff of Blood. Armor, same thing with random tables for the armor and all the potion tables. Scrolls, wands, which we showed earlier in the magic section, that you can, that's just additional. Then you've got sort of some utility items here, sort of like boots and cloaks that are made from different things, magical weapons, any sort of special stuff. And then we've got items with flaws, so cursed weapons, which is always my favorite section of any form of books. And you can design magic items from scratch. And then we've got last part of the book is just a load of magic items, sadly not curse items, but magic items in here to give out to the players if you haven't got time or you don't want to, or you want to, you don't want to have to create something from scratch. So there's some good and interesting. Then finally, we've just got the character sheet. And as you'd imagine from a game like this, actually, if I just rotate this, you'll see the character sheet is so simple. Name, ancestry, your 6 stats, hit points, AC, what you're doing, attacks, some gear that you've got to carry, any sort of talents or spells that you've got, your name, alignment, title, and that is it. Final bit, we've just got the credits here at the back of the book, and then as you'd imagine, like at the front here, we've got some handy, useful tables. We have then got some random tables at the back just to help the games master out. So let's now look at what I think is good, what's bad, and I'll give you my thoughts on the art, but I think you've probably got my thoughts on the art as we went through. So let's start with good. Characters. I really like the fact how quick and easy this is for not only for new players to get in and create a character, but actually get boots on the ground and actually get going with a character. It's a bit of a gritty world. It's a dark, brutal world, shall we say, where there's a chance that players are going to die. And if you look at other games where you've got multiple, let's classes are over multiple places, it can take a long time to create a character. This isn't going to take you long. And if the worst does happen, then you can be back up and running. But even from a new player, if you want to just run this as one shot, I think we quite often have games like, oh, I really like this new game. Let's put this together as a one shot, and you'll lose, the whole evening is spent creating characters. This 5 minutes and the players are up and away. Secondly, the rules. It is incredibly light. You're not going to be bogged down and bloated with skill. So it brings that wonderful old school feel to the players to actually think about what the characters want to do, as opposed to looking at the character sheet, seeing what they're good at, and then deciding or try and manipulating the situation to be what they're actually good at. So that they will just go, I think I want to try and roll round behind the person and then come up and stab it. And okay, that's fine. Then just make a deck thing. With other games, you might need a tumble skill. You might need a athletic skill as well as a deck skill or a deck save. It's streamlined, quick, and will allow the players to do that. And in that, combat is significantly quicker than other games because there's so few options for the players to do. So the downtime for the other player characters it really isn't there. It just gets back to them a lot quicker. The initiative, I love the way the initiative works outside of combat. And the way it encourages players to have to think about what they're doing in a more of a micro managed environment, as opposed to, the players that just, you can see them doing this at the table, not really interacting. They may be playing with their dice, then they're just not focusing on the game because they're either too shy, too uncomfortable, they're not confident enough, they're not engaged enough. The initiative just re-engages everyone and brings people back in to it. And no magic sort of slots and no magic points. The unlimitedness of the magic, a plus and a negative, I will admit. But because magic is so powerful and so dangerous in this, it does make the players have to think about whether they just carry on casting spells willy-nilly, just, going for power word kill and all these horrifically dangerous spells as they go up the levels. But you've got to think about your opponents, and the NPCs are going to have these same spells potential for you to cast back on you as well. Or actually monsters. Every monster counter feels deadly because they don't have high hit points. Even when you look at like the Aboleth, I think the Aboleth has got something like 39 hit points, which for like a 9th level character is is not a lot, as you can imagine. So the combats don't last, as I said earlier, the rounds don't last, but the combats don't last that long. But equally, your players haven't got that many hit points either. So, and because XP isn't driven by killing, apart from the 50% chance of random encounters, it does encourage the players to role play, run away, um, deal with encounters in a different manner, try to hide. And you also don't get that going back to the lack of skills. If you've got a dex, there's a good chance you can hide, as opposed to other games where if you've got stealth, no, okay, well, I'm not going to give it a go then. So it just allows people to go back to the old school feel of playing a game and playing the characters the way they want to play it, as opposed to playing a series, let's say, of numbers on a character sheet. So as a collaborative experience, I don't think you can have much more fun, both games master and players. Okay, negatives. As you can see from the book, there's no real theme in the book whatsoever. It's very generic. It's generic fantasy. There are other books you can buy. I'd highly recommend Shadow Sun, which I've done a review on. It's a fantastic book. Sidetrack. But you're going to need to go, I think, to go and add more to the world from this. So as much as this is all in one place, and I think it is cheap, which, sorry, a plus that I think I covered it in the video, but the fact you only need the one book for about $60 is fantastic. But you're going to need something else probably, unless you're an experienced games master that doesn't want to homebrew a world from scratch. Which brings me on to my next point. One of the bigger negatives, hopefully I won't get thing. There are a couple of things this game does that I think will be incredibly difficult for an inexperienced game master. It's great for inexperienced players, but an inexperienced games master has to deal with preparation. There are players out there, well, games masters out there that will tell you, because the randomness of the worlds, the maps, the hep maps, the encounters, you don't need to prep. That's, I think, probably is the wrong thing to do, because you're not going to want to keep stopping to randomly roll encounters, then have to flip to understand what that creature does. Okay, the creatures are small, there's not a lot in there, because other games, they'll have a whole page of stat blocks, and there's a lot to work out. But also, when you get into the hexes, the maps, the world, the towns, there's five or six random tables for everything. So I would go and prep, if I was especially doing a homebrew campaign, go and prep a town and a village and a city with all the buildings and a load of NPCs there. So you've got it to hand just to speed up the flow. But you'll also know what's coming up. But I think that you're going to need that prep. But there's a few mechanics. So the light mechanic, it's just a little bit of an additional accounting that the games master is going to have to take into account of, random tables, the also turn order, and watching that can, and especially the timing of random roll-ins, whether it's a deadly place, a safe, relatively safe, etc. The time frames on how often you roll is just additional things. So personally, keep the light in, but obviously just have one light mechanic for the hour, regardless of multiple light sources. But I would probably roll random, well, I do roll random encounters, let's say, as and when I think it's a little bit more suited. I've already rolled the random encounters ahead. I know what's happening, but as in the chance of it happening, I would probably, if I was running this relatively inexperienced, definitely, I wouldn't be doing them at the time scales for the book. And the last one is player expectation, I think, because this isn't fifth edition where you're playing a superhero, where you are going to survive. Darkness is frightening. If you're playing a starting level wizard, you might have 2 hit points. You might have five if you're really well. You're not going to have five. You're going to have four, at absolute maximum. You're going to die unless you really think, because there's no opportunity attacks, or attack of opportunity, depends on what you call it. So monsters can freely interact and move around all the players at all times. So you've got to think strategically and how you're going to protect people more than you do in other versions and other games. You don't need, it runs actually really very well theatre of the mind as well because you've got the abstract distances. You don't have to grid base everything. So if you are playing face to face, it'll save you a lot of money, save you a lot of setup and everything because equally run this theatre of the mind and not. Art wise, I really like the art in this. It's black and white. It really sort of shows it has that old school, but I come from, I've been in this hobby now for 35 years, so I'm used to black and white art. And I think people might like or dislike it, but you got to think it keeps down the cost of the book as well. So the overall package that you're getting will be cheaper. But I think the art really sort of sets the scene for the world, the sort of fantasy world that you're going into. So, yeah, overall, I've given this, a fair amount of pluses. There is a fair bit of bad, I think, but that doesn't mean that I don't love it. It doesn't mean I don't think everyone should have this in their collection. It is a stonking 9 out of 10 because most of the issues that I have within a week of play, 2 or 3 sessions, will go away. You will find where you want to be with this, and because this is rules light, if you don't want to run the light, don't run the light. If you want to run it for half an hour or have individual lights, if you don't want to work the randomness of the encounters, you don't have to. This is your world, and it really does build that off the core mechanic, which is nice and simple, D20 plus, and you can have the most amount of fun, I think, in a short period of time. And I talked about this in my weekly video, and we ran the encounter that, and it's free. It comes when you buy the core rulebook online, and it's got an adventure in there that's the something of the Red Minotaur, but it's a proper old school dungeon. And because there's got this morale mechanic where monsters run off when they get to less than 50 hit points, it leaves the players with the um those creatures that ran off. They're still in here, aren't they? So as much as you think that you've got your life sorts, you can see somewhere in the darkness beyond is the creature you didn't kill that's coming back at some stage, either by accident or deliberately. It's either going to be avoiding you and you might stumble into it, or it's going to come back for a second bite of the cherry. Absolutely fantastic. Well done, Arcane Library. I really do like this game. Saying 9 out of 10. Everyone should buy this. Everyone should have it in their collection. So that's it. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. My name's Adrian from Dungeon and Dyslexia. See you on the next video. Thank you for watching.